Um, Welcome to the panel. We want to talk about events in the new normal.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
And Walter Wanyanya, it seems like you're doing great in Zimbabwe. One thing I've realized is that most of the panelists are actually musicians, producers, and have done great things in the art. There's quite a similarity between you and Mr. Hatitye when it comes to to whatever you've done. And yeah, so there is you from Zimbabwe who is also very, very much involved in creativity and in music itself.
Yes.
And you're quite youthful, just like Mr. Hatitye as well, who is I don't know whether to call him the CEO of music in Africa. And you're also in a group of musicians doing house. Yes, I do house music with Nyatiti. And so that really caught my eye that you're one of the two guys who are doing music and you're producing and you're involved in making sure that arts and culture is really working in Africa. We have Evelyn Ripper Band. Uh, Evelyn. Evelyn is from Germany, and I think they just did a festival on 21st, 24th in Hamburg, more involved in sales and marketing and, what it takes. Hello?
Struggling.
So Makadem, unfortunately, Evelyn is unwell. She won't be joining us today.
What about Raoul Rugamba? All the way from Kigali.
Badara?
Do we have Raoul Rugamba from Kigali, the young business entrepreneur? Yeah, Raoul is more into the IT and project management in Kigali. He has worked in the two universities there, University of Rwanda and another university there. I think those are the guys that we have here. Walter Wanyanya, who came much later. Eddie Hatitye and Paul Rugamba. Raoul Rugamba, I mean. Are we there? Are we good?
Yes, sir. We're good. We're good to go.
All right. Like I said, we're talking about events in the new normal. And Walter Wanyanya, Eddie Hatitye, I'm sure you're good at organizing events. Walter, you do events. You produce live events.
Yes.
I think I'll throw the question to you. What is the new normal?
I think from my end, from the Zimbabwean perspective, the new normal is how we're looking at events after the COVID pandemic, and what the COVID pandemic has taught us. I think a lot of us always had a very boxed way of looking at how events can happen. So, for example, I'll give you an example of something that is now. We would have had to fly from Zimbabwe to Kenya. Eddie would have had to fly from Joburg to Kenya, and everybody else would have had to fly from wherever they are to Kenya for us to be able to actually do this event, which is what we're doing right now. So that is one aspect and one very good example of how the new normal is. And the new normal basically means that we don't have borders anymore. We don't have limitations as far as us being in the same space for us to be able to do any event. And when we're talking events, we're talking any events that people gather together to either have a conference like this or to actually have live music. So having music streamed live to audiences all over the world was something that was only set aside for big broadcasting stations, your big SABCs, ZBCs, stations. They were the ones that were capable of doing that, and also, you know, big soccer matches and things like that. Music it wasn't a common thing for us to do, to be beaming events across to different people across the world. But I think now, after COVID, we managed to see that it was very possible for us to have an event in Zimbabwe that Kenyans can be watching, and to have an event in Nigeria that Zimbabweans are watching, and South Africa, and.
Yeah, yeah,
But so it's a case of now bridging the gap between the physical and the digital spaces, and not lose the magic that comes from being in the same room, enjoying the same music, and having a different and entertaining all the senses, if you know, if I could put it like that. So it's about us now trying to bridge that gap, because we have managed to reach some Kenyans that are in Kenya through Jacaranda Music Festival last year, because we managed to beam it there, and people managed to join through Facebook, through Instagram, and all the other different platforms. But how do we continue with them? We don't want to leave them behind and have to force them to come to Zimbabwe. We need to still be able to give them the access to the festival. So that is now what we're working on making sure that everybody gets to still enjoy what they've been exposed to.
yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Wanyanya. And to continue on that, I would like to talk to the CEO, the great guy who has been since 2011 with Music in Africa, Eddie. Eddie, are you there?
Thank you for the great for the kind words.
No.
Good
Now,
afternoon.
you know, the two of you really intrigued me in terms of being youthful and being very, very business minded and being very entrepreneurial while still keeping it cultural in the scene. Eddie, you're known. You've addressed big panels about music globally, all over Africa and the world. You know, from Womex to Woma to Moshito to you name it, to Kenya to Arterial. Talking about the new normal and whatever it means, and adding to what Walter's just said, how does it work for you as an event organizer as well, in terms of because at the same time we're doing online, but at the same time we're trying to go the old way. We are not giving up. So
Yeah.
how does it work for you in terms of, you know, visas and the COVID tests and vaccinations, and you know, of course, you know, many artists are very vocal and very strong. They want, some of them are saying, oh, they don't believe in you know, the conspiracies around. I think all that should be looked at. So in terms of all
Mm.
these legalities, and then of course how artists look at issues vis-a-vis the vaccination and the COVID tests and all that. How is that coming through for you, especially with music in Africa?
Yeah. So I represent Music in Africa, which is a Pan-African NGO, and the work we are trying to do is to support African musicians to see some development on the continent, and we're doing that through quite a number of ways. One of them, which is running this platform called musicinafrica.net, where we share quite a lot of information, which I guess in the context of the discussion today um, also helps to understand the new normal, because you can see that we share a lot of opportunities that are geared towards musicians. And the trend that we are seeing is obviously that there are resources that are being put towards, putting new energies into, reviving the music sector, especially the live sector.
Yeah,
Um, on top of that, we also are organizing this event called Acces, which is a Pan-African music trade event that happens in a different African city every year. This year, it's happening in Dar es Salaam from the 24th to the 26th of November, which is, I think, quite an exciting opportunity, not for only for us, but for anyone who is interested in the African music space, artists, music businesses, everyone who is working in the music industry is invited there. So I hope that some of our audiences and the people listening in will be interested in that. You would know that we also run a program called Music in Africa Live, which is also, we've been fortunate also to be, partly supporting ONGEA 2022. And this is really the work that we are doing, is seeing how we can be a catalyst for development, positive growth across the continent.
Yeah.
When we talk about the new normal, I agree very much with what Walter said. There's so many opportunities that we've had to see, but also I think we've seen in the past few months also how difficult it was. It really was prohibitive to do stuff during COVID. I remember once I had to go to South Sabsara in Zanzibar, Tanzania, and from there I had to go to Burundi for another festival, it was a small concert, the Marahaba event there. And after that, I had to come through Kenya because we were setting up an office in Kenya. And I remember looking at a $500 bill for COVID tests. And I think it got so bad that some countries were actually, requiring you to test when you get in, and when you have to leave, even if you're living within the 3 days, you still had to do tests. So all these costs are coming on an industry that is known for not having money at all. Actually, artists are very much known for spending a lot of money on road fees and actually not recouping those fees. And so COVID has really, really placed those huge constraints, and still continues to do that. I think even now, when we look at where we're saying the new normal now after COVID, yes, we are seeing that for us, for example, organizing Acces, at least some countries have loosened these requirements for tests, but not every country has done that. So if you still have to go to some countries, you either have to be vaccinated, and some people don't want to be vaccinated, and if you're not vaccinated, you still have to test. So those costs will continue to be there. I think also generally we find that the new normal has placed artists with, or left an artist with very, let's say, decreased bargaining power. I think artists now are still in that zone where they are taking what the promoter is offering mostly. They don't have a lot of some artists, and we're talking about artists. We were talking about the A-listers, but even there, you still see that the industry is very much open to negotiation, and it also worries one, and we hope that it doesn't become a trend where artists are essentially just taking whatever is presented to them, because it is not healthy. I would say that, as Walt was saying, one good thing that I've seen is also that content or these activities that were typically just done offline, you find that almost everyone who is doing an event is thinking about how can we stream these activities, how can we reach new audiences, and I think that is good for the creatives, that is good for the industry. Although it has meant also that you see a lot of service providers coming in with streaming services, and I think it's something that I hope it makes it cheaper going forward, because you would remember that just when we got into COVID, everyone was trying to stream, and those services kind of became somewhat pricey because of the demand that was there. And one hopes that we get more solutions that are cheaper, and that data becomes more accessible, because ultimately, it is important that the audiences can access this content.
Already, and I think talking about data and things to do with IT and stuff, I'd like to invite Raoul Rugamba. Raoul, est-ce que tu es là? Monsieur Raoul Rugamba. Raoul is Raoul, ça va? Raoul. Anyway, I don't know why I can't get Raoul.
I see there was a question for water. Maybe while we wait for Raoul, maybe we could try to address that.
Actually, Walter.
Yes,
Walter,
I'm here. Yes, I'm right here.
Since you're there, my other issue would be how are we adapting to the new normal for you as a producer of live events, and for you as an entrepreneur in the arts and culture in Africa, and of course especially in Zimbabwe and South of Africa, and wherever you're doing this, how are we adapting to this?
I think as far as Zimbabwe goes, I'll speak on the festival that we're actually having that's starting exactly a week from today.
Yeah.
The last time we had the Jacaranda Music Festival was 2019 in its full form. That's right before COVID. 2020, I mean, COVID hit. So this is the first time that we're actually back doing it the way we know how. So we've had to adjust a few things in the sense of health protocols now much better. Actually, we should have, if you think about it, it's something that we should have actually been taking care of and looking at every time we do events, because health protocols and health measures need to be there whether COVID is there or not. So it's important that these things are adhered to. So we're actually taking that into cognizance. And then we also have a situation where from our end, we have had relaxed measures that were put by government. They've been relaxed. So the numbers of people we can now host, a good number of people in a venue. Masks are an option. They're not mandatory and things like that. But like what Eddie has said earlier on, we are taking on the good the good ideas and the good things that came out of us going through COVID, and things that we saw that because of COVID, we had to adjust certain things that we are seeing that are beneficial going forward for those that are involved in music production, in live music production. So those things are some things that we are saying that, okay, yes, they may not be mandatory, but it's important for us to have as much access to water for people to simply just wash hands while they're in the venue, and hand sanitizers as a free service that is given in venues. It's a good thing to have. So these are some of the things that we are embracing and we're taking on going forward as permanent things that we can do to just enhance the experience of festival goers. And the other thing that I can add on top of what Eddie said is the issue of us having or finding a balance in accessing streaming services that are affordable for the people. So we need to be able to have streaming services that are very affordable to us event organizers, so that we can reach wider audiences, and we can be able to reach the African diaspora. We can be able to reach the Zimbabwean diaspora wherever they are, South Africa, Nigeria, whatever it is. So these are some of the things that we are hoping that can change for the better, because we can reach so many more people. And I'm sure there are people that are watching now that would not have been able to watch or to take part in this conference, because normally before 2020 it would have been a conference that's closed to those that are in Kenya, and it would have been geared for Kenyans in Kenya. But I can guarantee you now, there are people that are tuning in from from all corners of the world that have never been able to take part in this conference, and that's a very, very, very good thing, and a positive thing that we can embrace. So I think it's you know it's things like that that we should upload and then take on going forward as permanent things.
Thank you. And now we have Raoul.
Yes,
Comment
hi
ça
Makadem.
va?
Ça va très bien. You speak
Comment
French?
ça va?
Ça va très
Un
bien.
peu.
See you, my brother.
Juste un peu. Now, Raoul, I like your bio so much. It is into a language I don't speak. You know, a lot of technology, a lot of education, a lot of agency, a lot of projects. That's a language that that doesn't work in a song, but it intrigues me a lot because what I want to know is you as a project manager, you have an agency called Hob. I don't know if they call it Hobby or Hob. And then you have a company, African Colors. Now, with your kind of expertise in technology, in education, into the music industry, how do you bring that to deal with the challenges? And what challenges? And you also manage artists and stuff. As an artist, I realized that with the new normal, I became more busier as a solo act as opposed to a band. Now, how can we help the groups within this new normal to deal with those challenges vis-a-vis your expertise?
So let me start first by giving you a quick background. So I'm Raoul Rugamba. I'm based in Kigali. I'm the founder of creative and communication agency called Hobe Agency. And I'm also the founder of a Pan-African initiative called African Colors. So we are in few words as African Colors. We're an ecosystem builder. So we try to imagine an ecosystem which helps entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs, artists, and other practitioners to really thrive in this culture and creative industries. So coming to your question, today with the globalization and everything, so we are ever we are ever connected like before. So that means it's an opportunity for an artist, for a creative entrepreneur like myself, to explore or do business on a better on another market, and that becomes something artists need, something creative entrepreneurs need in terms of making a good living out of their businesses. So, for
Yeah.
example, Rwanda can do better on certain things, but Kenya does better on certain other things as well. So, for an artist to be able to move and be recognized on those markets is something that brings value to him or her as an artist. So that's where now today, with the new normal, with this pandemic, something that has taught us, that's where technology comes in. That's where our networks plays a big role. So how do we use technology to really help an artist to be known? So having your music on Spotify is one thing, right? But making sure that something in Sweden knows about you and stream you is another thing, because you make money when someone streams you, when someone is listening to you. So that's where technology comes in. How do we boost an artist? How do we use social medias, for example? How do you use NFTs? How do you use cryptocurrencies, etc., to generate one extra dollar for the artist, to market the artist, to make sure that the artist is known. And for us as well, we live by our ideas. How do we make sure that my idea is known in South Africa by Eddie, in Zimbabwe by someone else, in Uganda by someone else? So how do we use our networks, but also powered by technology, to really make sure that ideas are moving around and someone is picking interest to it, and then we collaborate. So in few words, that's what I can answer to your question.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And I admire the fact that you have all these projects for artists and also managing groups, but I still would like you to expound on that in the new normal.
So
How do you deal
there
with
is
a group?
okay. So what we do, what we focus on first is the education part, because we believe that everything starts with a certain skills to do better business. You have to understand the business you are in. So one of the challenges we face on the continent is that most of the people, myself included back then, was I came into this industry, entertainment industry, with no knowledge, no background, educational background per se. So I do differently business with someone who have a certain training, a certain acquired a certain skill, to do business in the entertainment industry. So the first thing is
Yeah.
education part. The second thing, if I jump quickly, is the collaboration part. So today, moving across Africa is a super challenging thing, right? But if we come together, there is a way we can bring on board sponsors. There is a way we can bring on board airline companies. There is on board there is a way we can bring hotel chains, for example, and that reduces all the burdens of an artist, of a creative entrepreneur, to be able to move across Africa, right? So that's where collaboration comes in. That's what we play as a role. That's what we bring on the table for the entertainment or for the culture and creative industry on the continent. And then lastly, if we imagine differently how we do business on the continent, that means we are attracting a bigger crowd. We are attracting a bigger market. So that's something which is interesting for an investor. Something that I can now go to see a bank and tell them, this is my business, this is the market, this is how the number of shows I have. I'm booked in South Africa, I'm booked in Zimbabwe, I'm booked by XYZ, right? Something tangible. I can go to the bank and ask them, a small fee that can help me produce my next music, for example. I'm just giving quick examples. So those are
Yeah.
the things we are bringing on the table. Those are reflections you are bringing on the table, and those are things artists and other practitioners of the culture and creative industries need on the continent. So this kind of platforms, big up to Mike, this kind of platforms are really needed on the continent to brainstorm,
True.
to connect, and do business, right? So artists are not, they can do business per se, right? But their main thing should be focusing on creating, right? But they should have other people on the team who help them do business, who thinks on the next gig, who thinks on the next content, who thinks of the next marketing strategy, those kind of stuff. So those are the new things we need to think as entrepreneurs, but also as artists. And I think artists should start thinking and looking at it that way. And that's what we bring on the table for artists and other players in the culture and creative industry.
Thanks so much, Raoul Rugamba. And you brought issues that I need to drop back to one Eddie. Eddie Hatitye. Are you there?
Sorry, I mute myself. Yeah.
Eddie, Raoul Rugamba has gone very, very technical, just like his bio says. And I want to bring this to you so that based on that, what have we learned from all this? I'll always keep reminding you that, I'm involved in this as an artist because I'm a practitioner. And so you, as an artist and both in the organization, and you're heading a very, very big and a special company in Africa, what have we learned from these challenges? And because I'll tell you for a fact, like I was telling you earlier, that the new normal made artists who are solo or smaller groups more busier. That's what I saw in East Africa, Kenya, and Tanzania, especially where I visit the most. But you might be seeing it in a different way globally within the corporate and how they view the arts and culture. what have we learned from these challenges, and what have we benefited from this new normal, the challenges?
Yeah, I think more importantly, um, I see that artists or the industry as a whole is pushing now this narrative much more strongly, the narrative of the artist as a solution to their own problems.
Yes.
I think throughout time we've all had this kind of positioning where we're always thinking there is someone who will save us. And I guess this COVID time is the time where everyone needed to be saved. And I think I speak for everyone when I say that savior didn't arrive. And mostly we thought savior would be government or some kind of support that comes. And the reality is that the artists should be the solution to their own problems. And we saw that during COVID. And I guess we really started to see that the music is music, but it's actually a business.
It is.
And so I see a change of mentality, and I see at least a lot of emphasis being placed around the artist as a business. And now that means artists are really some artists are really starting to really think about music as a business. I'll give you an example. Here in South Africa, we know that during COVID, so South Africa is arguably one of the strongest markets in terms of the publishing industry because of the royalties and that are collected and generated. In fact, I think South Africa collects half of what Africa as a whole collects annually, and this is according to the stats that are available for everyone to see online. What I'm trying to get at is that during COVID, the companies that collect these royalties in South Africa, Samro, Capasso, etc., they had an influx of new members. So musicians who over time and time have been told, you need to register with the CMO because if you're not registered, you cannot collect your money. You need to notify your works with CMOs because if you don't do that, you will not be able to receive any cent. Now COVID hits, there is no money coming from gigs, there's no money coming from anywhere. And artists are saying, hang on, why am I not seeing money from CMOs and royalties and stuff? And the answer when they call them, they are told, you have to register. You have not registered at all. So Samro alone, I think they got like, thousands, 50,000, whatever more users during this period. And these are just people who are just saying, we need money. But what that tells me, at least, is that artists actually now realize why it is important for them to see this as a music business. Music is not, we are not here to play. We are here to make money, and that also means, for example, when I get called by Raoul to go to play in Tanzania, sorry, in Uganda, what must I take care of? It's really a business. It's not just about going there. It's really understanding that what you have to do for this business to thrive. Because ultimately, all of us here in the industry, we're here to make some kind of money, whether we are an organization or we are an artist. And I think COVID has really taught us that you need to diversify those opportunities as much as possible, and you need to be very mindful of how you spend money, how you earn money, and your future. So this for me would be the ideal normal, a situation where all artists are actually very mindful of where money comes from, and how to spend that money. Unfortunately, this now leads to the new normal where you see, like we know in the industry, education has been very important. I think COVID made education even more important. And that's the new normal. We are in a context where organizations such as Music in Africa and civil society, there is a change that we are all seeing in terms of priority. It's something that I clearly understand. I don't think that it's part of the new normal as occasioned by COVID, but that's just a reality that you would find also that in the world that we existed, civil society, or us as organizations that are looking for money, you find that issues to do with climate, issues to do with gender balance, issues to do with education are taking much more space. So if you are developing programs, I'm finding that that's the area where also support is coming and is becoming much more stronger globally. Now, what this means to artists, and I'm always saying this to artists, is that, again, using the same concept of an artist as a business, it's also saying to you as an artist, where do you get the money? Now, on Music in Africa, we have published a very fascinating report of a very extensive research study that we did here in South Africa. What we're doing there was trying to understand where the money is coming from to the informal market, mostly in South Africa. So, like, we found 46 revenue streams that I'm sure, Makadem, those will be applicable to you as well, wherever you are, just as eye openers. One thing that was interesting for me in those options is fundraising. So fundraising is a big revenue earner and becomes even more important post-COVID. Now, what that requires musicians and us as creatives to do is to start to understand ways to interpret our creative processes into social, let's say, currencies. And this is really where you get the money. It's like really saying, beyond us just making music, what are we doing in a social context, and who out there could potentially understand this social these social aspects, to the point where we can actually get some funding. And a lot of artists are actually known to do this. And I think we know also some projects that are run by these project programs in different agencies. And I find, I guess, in conclusion, I find that the new normal is a work artist. And a work artist is not one who writes beautiful lyrics and strong harmonies and very good compositions, but also one who takes care of their business.
Yeah, and I really like what you talked about there, um, because I'm looking at the benefits of the pandemic, in the arts. And Eddie, just to throw this before you end, is Africa does not really have an infrastructure for the normal one. So, do you think what the new normal has brought is actually a breakthrough to live performing artists? Because I've actually been trying to tour West Africa for the last 5 years. I've not managed. Now, with this, you find that you can actually tour those places online. You can tour the whole of Africa. Do you think that's a benefit to the challenge that we have?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say yes, but I will say no, because I, I I don't want, in the context of an industry where mobility is so much important and data is so much expensive, and our technical know-how as a community is still very much limited, as we see even in these professional places. I still want to advocate for a truly mobile, face-to-face industry. I think as Africa, we don't want to lose that momentum, which was building up just before COVID. And so while I appreciate what the internet is doing these days, I don't think that it comes anywhere near where we need to be. I mean, if you look at Nigeria, for example, or even Johannesburg, for example, I mean, there is so much appetite for live music, and yet, I mean, we all know this. Like, if Walter comes to Johannesburg and he calls me, and I had exactly the same situation, someone comes in, they call me, where can we see music? I cannot take you to anywhere where you can see live music in Johannesburg. But here's there's the interesting statistics. I believe it's not been done, I don't know, but I think that 1 in every 20 South Africans you meet here is a musician, a very good musician. Now think about that. Think about that. Think about if we had an ecosystem where we actually had live places and much more options for people to find jobs to play. And here in South Africa, I think the rate of unemployment now is just over 60%. I think that's besides the official stats we get. But what we always saying is that a big number of that is actually creative people who could be playing in different venues night in, night out. And now I think COVID also gave us, and we don't want to be giving this information to our policymakers and to our ministers and our government that, look, we are now content with internet and everything because we are nowhere near where we need to be as an industry that is fully functional. So I guess the answer is we need to do much more. We need to try to really put energy into the live music industry as it was before, and hope that the internet can be, I think, much more than anything, part of our promotional, arsenal or vehicles to those who cannot join. But primarily, we still need to invest much more money into infrastructure.
Thank you. Very interesting there, Eddie. Mr. Walter Wanyanya. Your name is very, very Kenyan, actually.
I was told that
Yes.
last time I was at ONGEA.
Yeah, sure, you're not from Kenya. You need to do some
No,
DNA test.
I'm definitely African. I just happen to be born in Zimbabwe, so I belong to Kenya.
Yeah. That one you challenged me. There's a lot of movement that happened there.
Yes, you never know. My grandfather could be from Nairobi.
Yeah. Now, you as an artist, you as a live music producer, you as an entrepreneur, what's the future of all this with the new normal? What do you think?
I think the future is bright. Besides us looking at the new normal, the future of entertainment, the future of the creative economy, the African creative economy, is vibrant. Because if you look at the work that music in Africa is doing, for instance, how it's bringing people together from different walks of life, from different continents, and knowing each other and being able to cross-pollinate and being able to share ideas, the continent is becoming smaller and smaller. So, like, I met Mike because of Music in Africa initiative. I've met a whole bunch of other people. I'm just using Music in Africa as an example. I've met a whole bunch of other people from conferences like ONGEA and like Acces conference happening in Tanzania. So all those conferences and all these things that are happening in the African creative economy are making sure that we as creative entrepreneurs are meeting and we are exchanging ideas, we're discussing things like this, and we are finding African solutions to African problems. And I think the more we do this, the more we can see a brighter future for creatives on the continent, not just Zimbabwe. Because before we were working in a bubble where you're saying, I'm only entertaining and doing events for Zimbabweans. I'm only entertaining and doing events for people in Kenya, in Joburg, and. But we're finding that Eddie is going to be at Jacaranda Music Festival next week. I've got jigs coming from Eswatini. I've got guys coming from Botswana. I've got guys, artists from South Africa, from Zambia, from Nigeria. We are finding that the continent is becoming one, and I look at it like if you look at Bra Yuba Sekela's last album, which is titled No Borders, and he talks about how Africa literally has no borders. We can look at the rest of the world, yes, but before we go there, there's such a huge market for African music, by African musicians and creatives all over the continent. So it's important that we start connecting with each other and stop thinking about reaching to just people that are in your periphery. It's important to start thinking about people that are outside of your continent. We can have tourism that's centered around an event. You can have an event happening in Cape Town, and you have the whole of Africa descending on Cape Town to be entertained in Cape Town. Same thing can happen in Kigali. Same thing can happen in Lusaka, Harare, Durban, anyway. So how we map the way forward is about how we present the opportunities that are there for creative entrepreneurs. And government has to play a part in that, in the sense that the restrictions that are there between people moving from one country to the next, visas, things like that. We need to get to the point where we shouldn't need visas to each other's countries as Africans. That is the easiest way. That if I find out there's a good concert happening in Kenya tomorrow, there's Kenya Airways flying from Harare direct to Nairobi, I should be able to jump on a flight without me having to hand my passport into the Kenyan consulate to get a visa stamped in. I should be able to do that and jump on a flight and get to Kigali and watch a concert happening in Kigali without the travel restrictions that are there. Forget COVID, that were there before and are there now. So these are the things that I think we need to start looking at, and we need to start engaging our different governments so that we can have a future in the creative economy. That is the African creative economy, not just our own bottled way of thinking that, oh, I'm just in Harare, I'm just going to do what I do here, I'm living in a bubble. I think the future is that we need to explore each other's countries, we need to explore each other's talents and each other's attractions that are there. And music is a very good way to get people to come to each other's countries because we understand each other's music. And I think from my end, having managed Dr. Oliver Mtukudzi's music, having managed him as an artist, we would get to Kenya and people will sing along to his music, but they really wouldn't understand fully what he was talking about because there was no need for them to understand Shona, but they would feel the music. And music is a very good way of bridging gaps between all of us. It takes away the language barrier, it takes away all those other barriers, but when you feel music, you feel it. And I think that's where the future is. And definitely the future is bright, but we have to make very deliberate efforts into make sure that we bridge these gaps and we have relationships amongst us as creative entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much. I think I'll like to emphasize on that with the man from Kigali, Raoul, you are a businessman. You do projects. You have a company, you have an agency, Hope and African Colors. Do you think Africa has a future in handling these events?
150%. Because the thing is, we have more than 3,000 cultures, right? That's interesting. We have 1.2 billion people. We have countless talents across Africa. All these things are really, really, really important for to have something out of it. It's just a matter of coming together and use it usefully, right? So, and I think with the new generation coming, with everything we are all of us doing across Africa, we are showing that it's possible. Now and more, governments are following slowly, but they're following. And once we have that political will and support, it creates also other movements around building infrastructures, attracting investment, etc., etc. So I think in the next 3-5 years, I think it will be a different industry. Plus, also all the other trends happening in the world in terms of technology, right? So we'll see more and more knowledge about the industry, knowledge about the talent happening, more resource being injected, more revenue generated by those artists and other creatives as well. And also something interesting happening is big companies, big institutions being involved in providing affordable internet. For example, in South Africa, I have seen TikTok being involved in providing affordable internet, I think with MTN or something. So those are things which are interesting. So more people are connected, more they can consume things, and that's important. But again, something I wanted to touch on the previous question, I think the two worlds will have to coexist, the virtual world, but also the in-presence world. I think it's something that brings value to each other. Let me give you an example about it. So the South by Southwest Festival, which is in the States, have for their last year festival or this year festival, they had over 40,000 nights booked. People traveling there and book.
Yeah.
So we have to look at the economics of these festivals, of these events, right? It's beyond one artist going on the microphone and sing, right? There is someone who took an airplane. There is someone who ate at a restaurant. There is someone who booked a room, etc., etc. So we are giving more to our countries than just an artist taking the mic, etc. So there is a whole economics around it. There is also the virtual world, let me say, where you have seen what Scott has done with the video gaming, right? So couple millions gained in just few hours, right? So that's something that can generate revenue for an artist. So I think those worlds should coexist. One shouldn't be left behind, and both of them should be pushed really at the same time or further, if I can say so, by our private sector, by us, the players, but also our governments.
Nice. Eddie.
Yes, sir.
I still have a bone to pick when it comes to the future of events in Africa. I don't know what you would say about it. Because, like, in this new normal, we have a lot of challenges in organizing them and effecting them, let alone the old setup where we still have those challenges of actually putting up an event with good sound, good promotion, and also probably relying on sponsorship or something. What do you have to say about Africa's future in this, both online, both virtual, like Raoul said, and of course offline?
The future is bright. I mean, we were at a Delicious Festival just a few days ago here in South Africa. Well, they were saying 100,000 people came there. Burna Boy was at the headline act. It was huge. It was massive. It was just like any, in terms of international standards, in terms of the sound and other things. Of course, there are always challenges in there, but I think, are we capable of doing big events? Yes. Is there appetite for these events? Yes. Do we have the talent to put on these stages? Yes. So I think we can definitely, and 100% agreeing with what Raoul was saying. We cannot separate the digital and the physical.
Yeah.
What worries me sometimes is the events that seem to be most successful are those events that have. Now, we are yet to get to a point where we see independent festivals becoming more self-sustainable, and we know this. I don't think there is one festival that I've seen happening in every or festival event that's happening that is, not involving big monies from either one of the telcos or one of the banks. And I think that is the biggest challenge we have. And one needs to think about how do we reimagine events. This is one thing that the guys from Visa for Music told me in one of the surveys I was doing. And they said, as Africa, we have to imagine a world where events are not judged by the numbers that they bring in terms of the physical audiences. In other words, we must just at this point focus on multiplying the numbers of the events themselves. And also imagine that events should take place anywhere, because we don't have sometimes the infrastructure, as you said. Sometimes we don't have the right sound to meet the capacities. So I think we need to imagine, for us to have a brighter future, especially for the grassroots level artists, we need to imagine really breaking down the notion of a festival where people immediately think 5,000 people. No, it doesn't have to be like that. Immediately, I see people trying to do three-day festivals with a budget for hardly one concert. And this is, I think, if we get more education, if we get more networks, if we talk much more about this, and we bring these complementary circles and these ideas, the future can only be bright. So yes, to answer your question, the future is definitely bright, but we must not make sure that it's a future that involves this is the community that is hardly getting a piece of the cake.
Yeah. Thank you. I need to. Thanks so much. I would like us to go to the people a bit and see if they have some questions for you. Um, Anyone with a question in the audience? Do you have anyone with a question in the audience? Hello. Does anyone have a question on the audience?
I see a question on the screen there. I don't know. It's directed to Eddie.
The one from, is it from Aziza or from?
Ashley, from Ashley Mugo. I don't know if Eddie, if you can see that, or is it just me?
Yeah, I think the question about the how can legal, I think it's not very clear. My question is how can legal play a part in music events to support the growth? I don't really understand the legal part, but I think what I would like to just comment on is how can the legal aspects of the music industry support revenue generation. I'll also share a link that gives a little bit of some thoughts that we have had based on a research that we did here. I think legal means also, especially now in terms of the digital aspects that, for example, Raoul was speaking about. So it's actually 100% possible now to do completely digital events. However, we also know that in most countries, when we're looking at the legal aspects of an event, so the venues still have to play a part in paying, you know, royalties for hosting artists and playing music. Public performance royalties essentially come from that as well, depending on the different countries. What I think is not where we are not there yet as an industry is actually those legalities around clearances. We struggle every year, even with artists understanding. For example, I'll give you an example. So an artist could come and play at a show, and artists don't really understand sometimes their bargaining power when it comes to the if the show is actually online. Also, how does that normally work, and what is in for them? Who has to clear what, and who has to do what? And that is a very a big income stream as well, potentially big. But I don't think it's one area where we are strong at the moment. And I see these things hopefully becoming more standardized in the future. You'd know that even these days, if you would go live on certain platforms, they will possibly block your show, or mute your stream because of these rights issues. And those are things that did not feature in contracts a lot before COVID. But the new normal is telling us that role, who clears the music, and if the artist is negotiating on the deal where it's beyond just playing at Ngoma Nehosho. Ngoma Nehosho also Jacaranda Festival in Zimbabwe at Waters. If I'm going there and playing, how comfortable am I to have that negotiation with Water to say, okay, because I see you're going to, do much more than this. And I think it's as an industry, we are not yet there, but I think internationally these are things that are quite standardized. And I see that sometimes for Access, when we book certain artists, they will like make life difficult for us as organizers, and they'll say we will simply not sign or one artist last year, they essentially said to us, look, you are not going to be able to feature my performances on your live stream unless if you pay from A to Z. You gotta pay more money for that. And these are things. This is now what legal understanding of the industry can do for you as an artist, I guess.
All right. Raoul, I see someone wants to connect with you here.
Yes,
Nadia, and you're good at connections. That actually provides a very good future. I don't know how you do it. How are you doing these connections in a big continent like Africa with where, of course, we still have those teething problems even with the virtual.
I think
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. So she would like to connect, but I want you to expound on this based on the future. How are you doing this as a African Color and Hub agency?
I think it's people are now connected on internet, on social medias. So I think it's about sharing what you do. If you are an artist, we have to make sure that if I Google your name, I will be able to see you. If I Google a country, I will be able to see what is happening, etc., etc. So it's really about putting ourselves out there online, make sure that we have a certain presence. So that's in this new world. I think it's key, and that's the only way to go. And then another thing is really being part of networks. It's really important. So wherever, for example, happening in Kigali from South Africa, sometimes through, let's say, Eddie or a partner, he will make sure he plugs me in, etc., etc. Mike in Kenya, if there is something happening from Rwanda, or someone who wants to go to Kenya, will make sure that Mike is in the loop, etc. So I think those are the things that are new ways of doing things. Sometimes back it was one person doing something somewhere, and we don't know, the rest of the people don't know. So I think it's more of now interconnecting, having networks, being part of a place where we share. It's really difficult in this industry to have information about on the continent. So which actually Music in Africa is doing. You guys are doing amazing in terms of keeping us in the loop of what is happening, which show is happening, which grant is open. So those are things which are key and not easy to have on the continent. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot about that. I think I'll need to pick your brain sometime because I love coming to Kigali. So, but that's a story for another day. Eddie,
welcome. We're open.
Thanks, Eddie. Mr. Hatitye.
Yes, sir.
Are you in South Africa or you're somewhere?
Yes, sir. In Johannesburg, yes.
I can't see the house party behind there.
Yeah, there's no power. We are in a power crisis, my brother.
Oh,
so
no. Now, one Natalie crew says SXSW is so expensive to run. Acts true. The economics rarely makes sense unless you can book out other official showcases and have the mobility funding and budget to push an artist. So, where is the continent's own SXSW?
Yeah. Can you read? I can't see what the comment, the initial comment, please. If you want to read it again, please.
It's by Natalie Crew. She says SXSW is so expensive to run. Acts true. The economics rarely makes sense unless you can book out other official showcases and have the mobility funding and budget to push an artist. So Australia understands this, she says. Australia understands this. where is the continent's own SXSW? And I think she means where is Africa's SXSW?
South by Southwest, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we have got many of those. And you have to understand that's a big machine, South by Southwest, quite a big machine. And I think in Africa, we've got our own context and narratives. I think that cumulatively, we are working towards having these big activities, and that go beyond just festivals or conferences. So, for example, Visa for Music, Acces, Moshito, etc. Fortunately, these events have got their own challenges and also benefits. A lot of them actually. I agree. The showcasing economy is one that is not based on earning money that you can use to buy a car or anything.
Yeah.
Showcasing platforms are there to provide a stepping board for artists to get onto the commercial space. What I see, and the biggest challenge is that here on the continent, and to some extent even in South by Southwest, it's like you're going to a trade event. You're going to promote yourself. You're going for an elevator pitch. You can do that pitch, and people will jump on you and want to give you business. But the waste can also happen from that process. So it is part of these industrial or the strategies that we as artists we have to formulate and try to get into those spaces. There is absolutely no guarantee. So I think what she's saying there is actually important, which says it doesn't make sense unless you're finding partners who are sponsoring those activities, or there are other connections that you're able to make. So if I'm going to play in Rwanda or in Zimbabwe, and we agree on XYZ with Walter, maybe go the extra mile of saying, Walter, what other partners do you think would be interested in booking me? And I think we all want as event organizers to offer this. And I know how complicated it is to just bring the artists. I don't know if you've looked at the Jacaranda Festival lineup, for example, but it's quite a strong lineup, and I envy you there, and really congrats to you for making such a strong lineup, because I know it's not easy. But I think I can almost guarantee that every artist on the lineup expects much more than you give them, and it's now about what makes sense to them. We had Mr. Easy come to Kenya to access one access. I still can't believe we pulled that one off, and we didn't pay him a single cent. We just paid him a flight, and you know what the deal was? For him, it was like, we give you this flight, and he said, I want to perform in Kenya. I've been wanting to. No one has invited me. If you guys pay my flight, I'll be there at your event. And that was an easy win-win situation. So I think we want to see more like value exchange, and I guess more openness from us as organizers to make business easy for artists. Like, we have Access happening in Tanzania now. We have artists coming from Mali. Most of them, they have to put their own money to come to Tanzania. And for us, the challenge as an event organizer is, let's look beyond our event. Let's look at providing extra value to the artists. Does it mean them staying maybe a few days later and going and playing other shows? And I've seen this, and it's not easy because event organizers are always busy. But I think that's why we also need to talk about music management, maybe in another discussion, because I find that for me, all the artists that we book that have got management, they always get the best out of the deal. And sometimes it's not about getting the best from us, the initial book. It's like, asking and making inquiries and saying, okay, maybe after your show, please connect us with 3 more shows. Because really, that's what we are doing as musicians. It's a business. It's not just like saying, okay, I'm invited to go to this workshop and then that's it. And I think the guys who are really making money, and if you look at the guys who are the big guys, the guys who are signed, they hardly do this one show event. Even if they're getting those big monies, you see guys going to Afro Nation or whatever in Ghana, they're still doing other things. They're shooting music videos. They're doing collaborations. And I think if we really want this thing to work, that's the kind of mentality we have to have.
Maybe I like before you run away, that part of Eazi where you're saying he was willing to come because nobody has invited him to Kenya. That's a very, very interesting. Is it the new normal, or is it that has caused that? Because I don't know if you're hearing me, Eddie.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear
Because
you.
artists and musicians tend to argue about that part of accepting not being paid. Now, for someone like Eazi at his position to take that, is it those are some of the stuff we've learned with the new normal? What could you use? How could you use that to tell artists? Because artists and musicians really love that topic, and they're always like, no, 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 I'm not working for exposure. I'm not doing this for no payment, blah blah blah. And there's a lot of that, because me as an artist also I get it. Yesterday, some lady wrote on my wall that, when are you coming to Tel Aviv? You know, I'm like, hey, Tel Aviv. So, talking about AI, is the accepting to come for Access because he has never been invited in Nairobi. Tell artists more about that.
All I'm saying is, and I think my colleagues here can add more. All I'm saying is, we live in a world of value proposition or value. It's a world of there's this term they use, what they call say high value men or high value ladies. All we are talking about is we live now in an economy of value. If I agreed to say I am going to be on this panel,
Yes.
quite honestly, I'm invited by ONGEA. I'm going to be on this panel. I'm not an artist, by the way, and I don't get paid to be talking on this. But there's something that I value about this platform. And I'm tired of that discussion, artists saying we don't perform for free. And I'm tired of artists complaining about not getting paid. Yes, because no one should get paid. But you have to understand, graphic designers do complain about not getting paid. Plumbers complain about, like, it's an economy, right? All we have to do is to understand what value is, right? What is value that we want? Because it's not a new thing that people sometimes are getting, are doing services exchange for value that might not be money. I'm not advocating for artists not to be paid. What I'm advocating is for artists to be able to equate that which they get from an opportunity and see the value they get from it and say yes or no. And now what I was saying is for Mr. Easy, who is an artist that I know, to bring him to an event. Now we've been getting quotations from other artists just to come to speak at the conference, who are saying we want to be paid 20,000 US dollars. These are the amounts we get from artists. If we invite now Diamond to say, just come and do a keynote at this event, we're bringing artists completely free event. He still wants 20,000 US dollars to come and do that. That's value to him. But all I'm saying to us is now, what we've been learning over the years is also now going to him and saying, look, we don't have that money at all. We're not going to give you the money, but we'll give you X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Now it's valuable because of ABC.
Yeah.
And we are giving the offer to him, and he still has the right to say yes or no. And this is all I'm saying. And I'm saying to artists, don't say yes if you don't see the value.
Yeah.
Now, if you go and perform at South Sabzara now, you might see actually the value that you want might be different from what you get. It's a big festival. So what is value to you? Is it only money? Is it exposure? Is it the gigs that you can play after on your way to South Sub-Sahara and after South Sub-Sahara and after in the island? So all I'm saying is that artists sometimes we don't use the we don't look at the value that way. We're always looking at that one instance, and we don't think that we can negotiate more, and we can also see the value. The value is time. We're all putting time, and that's why I use the example to say I'm here speaking on this conference, and the value for me is priceless, right? But it's not money.
I like that, the word you've used there, value. I think sometimes also it takes how you look at it. Um, for example, Raoul, are you there?
I am.
You being a project manager, IT expert and stuff, and a businessman, I think some of the you could expound for us on the usage of terminologies. And I think this works with the new normal. Sometimes I think lack of language makes us think we've been deprived. Like, when do you use the word investment and when do you use the word expense? So, for example, Eddie is talking of value in terms of what you're earning from whatever you're doing. It doesn't have to be that you've been remunerated. So, you as a project manager, and of course with the company and agency, within this situation we're in, what do you tell artists in terms of some of these, how to look at situations?
So that's a very long ongoing discussion here. So which is very interesting. So that's what the business people have to come in, and the artists have to be really around some business people, people who understand business, specifically in this industry. So they can do that. They can also be the ones, but it's interesting to really think differently on how they cost their stuff, right?
Yeah.
For example, today in Rwanda, artists are saying, okay, I want to be paid the same amount as any foreigner artist coming in Rwanda. Let's say Chris Brown, let's say Mafiki Solo, let's say Sauti Sol, etc. Right? But there is a reason why an artist come up with a price, right?
Yes.
So if today I can pay Sauti Sol 30,000, as an example, it's vis-a-vis of the return on investment I will have, right? So I know Sauti Sol will sell X amount of people. So if tickets, let's say Chris Brown requests me for 50,000 US dollars. I know it's equal to what I can sell. I can accept, I can refuse. That's his money, that's his value, the amount of money he asked for his work, right? So artists have to understand one thing. You have also to be on that side of saying, okay, am I just coming up with a number because maybe I have too many bills I have to cover, or is it worth
Yeah.
the business side as well? Is it giving sense for a promoter? If I charge him X amount of money, does he make business really, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the artist loses business because he charged a lot of money, which I don't say it's not his value or her value, but vis-a-vis of the market, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. So the artists have to understand, okay, if I charge this amount of money and I add this deal around it, for example, instead of me bringing a cameraman, can you provide content for me? Can you share this, etc.? Can you connect me to South Africa? So those kind of other deals around the amount of money you are making is something artists have to think of, right? And
Yeah.
coming to what Eddie said, it's really about saying, okay, if I go to Acces, there is Raoul, who's a producer in Rwanda. There is Sony Music. There is Universal, etc., etc. That means there is a lot of chances if I go there to meet these people I need for my growth in this music career, right? So maybe if to charge Eddie 20,000, I can charge him 2,000, and then I recoup the balance, right, on XYZ. So artists
Yeah.
have to start thinking like that. That happened to many artists. That happened to Jay-Z. That happened to Stromae. That happened to many artists have done that. And also try to see how do we create value now beyond the how do I use that platform I own to recreate my image, to recreate content that I can sell on after the festival, after that platform I've been to. So as a new income generation. So if I'm not in Acces, I can sell content of Acces, right? But if me I, as an artist, I'm in Acces, I can create something that I can sell beyond Acces, right? So artists and their management team have to start thinking like that to be able to be in many places, which at the end of the day brings your monetary value up. It increases that. So you get increased when you have many followers, you have many, the audience is bigger, etc., etc. So that's what I, as producers or as promoters, we look at when we deal with the artists, right? So I think artists have to rethink those kind of stuff and start looking at extra
Yeah,
values they can get on X platforms. So yeah.
yeah, that's very business. Thank you. We're coming to an end here, and Walter Wanyanya, are you there? Walter,
Yeah, brother, I'm here.
Walter, as we close, uh, and we still keep it to our topic of events in the new normal. Walter, just expounding on what Raoul Rugamba has given us out of Kigali, expense and investment for an artist. What is an expense and what is an investment?
Yeah, that's a lot of English. I need to reload my English bundles because I think I can explain that better in Shona. But
Yeah,
anyways, I'll give it a shot.
you organize events.
I know.
And you all,
Okay,
and
I
artists
think
have. I think language is very important when we are doing business.
yes.
Yeah, I think that's
So
where we always go wrong.
I'll put my artist manager's hat for this one, having managed Dr. Oliver Mtukuzi. So, an investment, I think, is money that is used by an artist to to do something that they will see, what you call it, they will see profit coming out of it. So if Eddie has invited an artist to say, hey, come to Acces 2022 in Tanzania. This is what we're offering you. We think it's a good opportunity for you to come and showcase, etc., etc. You hear this. It's important for you to look at that particular opportunity and that invitation and say, is this a good investment for me? And do I see value, to use the word that he used? So you need to look at it and you need to be able to identify really genuine opportunities for exposure, really genuine opportunities for investment, and the real genuine opportunities that give you value. So if, for instance, the Access stage or the Jacaranda Music Festival workshops or conference does not give you value, you are actually free to say, you know what, I don't think that's what I want to do. But you just need to be able to know and to tell the difference between what actually is of value to you as an artist and what's not. So, for example, again, I'll use Access because Eddie's here, and then because he has those kind of setups where artists are investing into their business by going to Access, paying their own way, paying their hotels. But what it does is Eddie has put together a list of people that are at Access. These people he pays for, and some of these people pay for their own way. But these people that he will put in a room, he will have 30 to 50 people that are like me, festival organizers, festival bookers. And if you're an artist from Rwanda, for instance, and you've never been invited to Zimbabwe, why? It's because Zimbabweans don't know about you. You are possibly very popular in Rwanda, you're possibly very popular in Kenya, but you're not popular in Zimbabwe. But Eddie has made an opportunity or is given a platform to have me come to Tanzania, meaning that when you showcase that, I am going to see you. I am going to see that you're an amazing act that I need to take back to Zimbabwe. That is the only way that you're going to export your music. That could be the only way that you're going to be heard in Zimbabwe, by having an opportunity to perform in front of 40 key people. Like, remember, it's not really about the numbers. At some point is where you find opportunity for investment. Sometimes if you play for those 40 people, it's 40 potential bookings. Whereas you can play in Kenya, where you're from, for 40,000 people. But out of those 40,000 people, yes, it's a great show. You're going to have good footage. Everybody's going to think you're wonderful. But none of those people are going to book you for the next show. But And
Very
that show,
important there. Yeah.
definitely, if it's 40,000 people, get paid, get your money. But the 40 people that are going to be at Acces in Tanzania are not necessarily people that are your fans. They are business partners. They are potential business partners that can get you to the rest of the continent. So that there is a situation where you see that, okay, this is an investment where you and your management team can look at and say, okay, should we pay our own band? We sit down with the band and we tell them, guys, this is not a gig that we're going to perform for 40,000 of our fans that we perform to every time in Kenya. We're playing for 40 people. We could get 25 bookings out of this performance, and we could get 25 bookings that can put us in front of 10,000 people in each country of the continent. Now you're playing for new audiences that would have never heard you before. That's an investment. So I don't know if I've given that example
Very right.
the right the right context. So artists
Yes.
just need to be able to identify what is an actual opportunity, what's an actual opportunity for exposure, where is value, where should I invest into this particular thing. That's how artists can invest into their own careers, into their own business. What is the other word that you asked about, brother?
Expense.
Expense. So sometimes expense, it is what it is. It's clearly that it's just an expense. Do you wanna just spend money on something that may not, give you fruit? It's just an expense. It's not really gonna do anything for you. If
Because you
maybe
see,
you can,
you know what? Sorry to cut you short, but I think that's why I keep saying language is important, because we
yeah,
confuse the two. So you find that, like what you've explained, coming to play for a group of people that
yes,
might book you into
yes,
big events and open up your world, you think it's an expense rather than an investment.
yes,
Then you find that, because I've seen that with artists in Kenya, especially the local, we have what we call tribal and vernacular pop, whereby they're getting a lot of money, but they don't invest into, for example, the back line or anything to do with their music. They will build a house, they will do other
yes,
things that have nothing to do with it, with the music that generates their money. So that's
yes.
why, yeah. So I think it's important that artists need to understand that this one, as much as I'm spending, I am investing. But
Mhm.
this one, if I'm spending, I'm just spending.
It's an expense. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not gonna come back.
Yes.
That's
So
very
you
true. No, thank you for
explain
that
it
question.
well.
It's a very pertinent question, and I'm hopefully some people have grasped that. And thank you for asking that question. It's important.
Thank you so much. Now, Eddie, are you there? We need to wind up. Closing
Same.
remarks, Eddie.
Oh, closing remarks. I think yeah, check out, please. What's coming before the end of the year? Access in Tanzania. It's a free event. Yeah, all invited.
In Dar
And
es
yes,
Salaam.
thank you. Yes, in Dar es Salaam. Yeah,
Uh-huh. When is it?
I'll drop. It's 24, 25, 26 November. It's going to be, I think, a very important meeting space for those who want to who are working in the African music space. I will drop a line, the address here in the chat.
Nice. Thank you so much, Eddie. It was nice
Thank
having
you.
you in the panel. Raoul, can you give us your closing remark?
So let me see. So I think I would just say it's possible, it's doable, and
Yeah,
as the private sector, as the players of the industry, and also try to convince our respective governments to really jump on this opportunity, which is a huge opportunity, which can contribute on other sectors, the health sector, the education sector, the agriculture sector, the tourism sector, etc., which our countries need of, and also look at other benefits in terms of immigration. We can use this industry to really solve the issue of immigration we are facing. and also be able to nurture the talents. You are looking at those countries in the Western world nurturing on our behalf. We should be ashamed by that and try to see how we can nurture those talents locally. That means empowering our people, our own people, giving platforms, giving infrastructures needed. So I think this is the time for our governments to really look at these industries as an opportunity for the socio-economic development of their countries. And thank you, and let's keep fighting and working together. Peace.
Thanks so much for looking at the governments there. I think that one is very important. All the way to Harare, Mr. Wanyanya. What would you say as your closing remark? I can't hear you. I don't know why.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I was saying that as we have on this panel, we've got Eddie in South Africa, I'm in Zimbabwe, you're in Kenya, Raoul is in Kigali. That really just shows you how we have taken away borders, and we've taken away the restrictions that sometimes these borders give us. We've managed to share information and share knowledge in the last hour or so. I would love to see more of this happening, with us not just talking about what can be done, what needs to be done, what we all have to offer, etc. I would love to see us exchange contacts and exchange ideas and be able to get to each other's countries on the ground. And you know what happens most of the times? I don't know if it's an African problem, but if I get up on a stage and I share about what I'm sharing now to my fellow Zimbabweans, sometimes my fellow Zimbabweans don't hear me because I'm from Zimbabwe.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if I get Raoul to come to Zimbabwe and speak about exactly the same thing to my fellow Zimbabweans, they will listen.
Well, listen.
So I see that the sharing of knowledge amongst our people, amongst our artists, needs to start us being able to give each other platforms in our different countries, where we're gonna find that we're gonna be effectively speaking to all these people in the creative spaces. Let's start interacting. Let's stop talking about it and actually do something. Eddie's coming to Zimbabwe to speak to the artists in Zimbabwe next week. I'm going to Tanzania to speak at Acces. We need more of this, and I'm so happy to have met you, my brother Makadem. I didn't know you before this. I didn't know of you before this, and Raoul the same. It's a pleasure to meet you guys. And again, like what Eddie says, this platform already for me has given me value because it's given me access to you, gentlemen. And that means that for what I'm doing for next year, I now have two potential people here that I can possibly do business with and say, hey, Makadem, come to Zimbabwe, do a panel like this in Zim. And I think more of that needs to happen. So we're going to see more of an impact when we start actually interacting with each other
Yeah,
more often, and be able to build this. We're passionate about this, and
true.
some of us, it comes out of a hobby and then it develops into a business. But then we need to now put all these business parameters into place so that we can be relevant on the continent, we can be relevant globally. But thank you so much for having us. To Mike and the team, I applaud you for hanging in there and being able to put this together annually. You're doing amazing work. And to everybody that's in Kenya, we salute you and thank you so much for having me, and everybody else that's tuned in.
Thank you, Wanyanya. Thank you, Mike. I'm actually glad I was here. I'll use the word investment. It's good I invested to be.
Yes.
We all invested to be here. Seems like.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good to connect. I'll actually make sure I connect with you guys because I'm a traveler all the time. Like right now, I'm in Berlin and I'm coming back, and I'm going to Burundi to Sika, and might pass by Kigali, look for you, Raoul. We have a cup of tea before I go to direct. So this is actually very nice for me that I've actually met somebody else into business. I've always loved to deal with businessmen because I'm not a very good businessman. I'm an artist, and I came to realize that art without business, then you're not gonna pay your bills. So
That,
I like
that's
I
the whole
like
idea. Otherwise, if you get into business, I will be out of business.
yeah. No. I just want to know how to talk to you. Like, using the right words. Like I said, we need the right language. We need to, you need to know what to do. Otherwise, even language alone can let you down.
Definitely. So I don't know how to sing, so for my next album, I will look for you.
Hi guys, we'll talk
All right.
online. We'll talk on emails and stuff like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And before you go, gentlemen, remember we have a networking session just after this in the networking lounge. Our appreciation goes to our moderator, Makadem, from Kenya, the Nyatiti Prince, or what's your moniker these days? You on the Nyatiti King?
No. May I call myself?
His Nyatitiness, I remember. His Nyatitiness. Walter, you may know Nyatiti as a traditional instrument from Kenya. Please book him for Jacaranda. So, Makadem, all the best with your tour in Berlin. And I'm sure Ibiza was very successful in Burundi. Walter, all the best with your festival early next month for Jacaranda. Wishing you well. Hopefully, we'll attend one of these days. And
next year, brother. Next year.
Yes, and thank you, Eddie. Eddie was on load shedding in South Africa, so he's at nearly 0% mobile. So, Eddie, thank you for joining. We look forward to Acces in Tanzania in November. Thank you so much for that. And Raoul, of course, in Kigali, in Rwanda. Thank you for Africa in Colors. I'm sure the next edition is around June, July next year. We look forward to that as well. And this is the new normal. We have brought, 4 African music markets from around the world, or 3 music markets and 1 artist. None of them are sitting here with us in Nairobi. And we've managed to have a fantastic conversation with, tangible benefits. And I like what one of the speakers said. It's not just about talking. And, ONGEA, as much as ONGEA is a talk shop, we are also a walk shop. So we like walking the talk. So let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep interacting. Let's keep interacting with our audiences. For those of you who didn't have in the audience, thank you for tuning in. For those of you who didn't have your question answered, we ran out of time. You can now go to the networking lounge. So what you do is you just go to reception, you click on the networking lounge button, and you find the lounge in which one of these panelists will be there. Eddie will try and join for as long as he can, but he's very low on charge. But just join your lounge, look for them, look for Walter, look for Raoul, look for Eddie. You guys as the panelists follow the same instructions. Click on the networking lounge, go to the lounge, talk to your people. It's a confidential conversation. It's not being streamed outside. Network, share your profiles, and what have you. And we'll be back here in an hour and a half for the next panel. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And apologies from Evelyn Simber again from Reeperbahn Festival. She unfortunately couldn't make it, but she will make it again next year. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Asante sana.